A desert planet with twin suns.
Why do I sense we've picked up another pathetic life form?
Use my knowledge. Much to learn, you still have.
Welcome back to Twin Sun Talks, Regs. I'm your host, Jonah Liu. Glad to be back. I was gone for the last episode, which I'm sorry that it was so late getting out. Last week was kind of everywhere for me, but we're back on schedule, and today I have for y'all just a quick little more free-form episode, kind of like I've done in the past, where there's a little less script to it and a little more just me talking about what I want to see a little more moving forward, plus some brief profiles for some interesting background characters that I think deserve to be in the spotlight more. So I don't know whether this is ARC Trooper training or Visions, so I'm going to combine the two and say that it's both. So two zingers, back-to-back, ARC Trooper training, Visions. Let's go.
Gentlemen, who wants to be an ARC Trooper? I do, sir!
To continue, we need one singular vision. My vision.
I have gone absolutely off the rails, my friends. Like, I take one episode off and I start combining segments. But anyways, what I'm going to be doing in this episode is going through a list of characters that I want to see explored more within Disney's canon. And a lot of these characters have a lot of lore within the expanded universe, the extended universe that is now Legends, that came about between whenever George Lucas stopped creating movies and whenever Star Wars was acquired by Disney. So, yeah, I'm just going to start off. I've kind of broken these characters up into different eras of Star Wars. And so the first are going to be like kind of the more prequel era. Then we go into like the more original trilogy, then sequels. There's a bulk of these characters are within the prequel era because that's what I'm personally most interested in as a time period. I'm really interested in all the Clone Wars stuff and all that sort of stuff. So that's where the bulk of this is going to be. If any of y'all feel like I missed characters that deserve more attention, please go ahead and comment below. If this is on YouTube, comment on my Instagram. DM me on Instagram, email me, twinsuntalks@gmail.com. Any way you want, I can give you a shout out and kind of address those in later episodes. But one thing that I want to address is that I'm not going to be going over things that I know for certain that we're going to be getting more of, like the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. I'm not really going to be talking much about that because I've already talked about stuff that I want to see in Star Wars moving forward. In another episode of this podcast, you can go back and listen to that. I had my brother Jeb on, and we talked about all of that stuff from what we wanted to see from confirmed future projects. So, all that said, I'm not going to be going over like that, like Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Boba Fett, none of that stuff. Even people like Rex or any characters from the Bad Batch, like where we know for certain that we're going to get a little something extra about them. I'm not really talking about that. This is more stuff that we haven't really gotten any stuff outside of like maybe the Clone Wars about them, and I want to see just a little bit more. So to start off this list, I have 3 background Jedi that I think are really, really cool, and I think that a cool thing that could be done with this would be like a little mini series. It could be animated, it could be live action, about different members of the Jedi Order and just kind of highlighting them, giving them an episode for like a cool story about them. And these 3 Jedi that I have, and I have a couple other Jedi, but these 3 I think would fall into that category of background Jedi who I think deserve a little more recognition from like a mini-series would be Plo Kun, Kit Fisto, and Oprah Rancistas. And so Plo Kun is the Keldor Jedi. He's the guy with the orange skin and kind of the pointy mask. He's featured relatively prominently. I'd say the most prominently out of the Jedi other than like Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka in the Clone Wars. He's a super, super cool character. He's my second favorite Jedi and my brother's first favorite Jedi. I think that it would be amazing to see him in action more, to really get to know him a bit better because he was one of the most powerful Jedi in the Order. He was a member of the Jedi Council, and I think that he was criminally underutilized in all of Star Wars. And I mean, I don't know. I think that he's pretty clearly dead, despite what my brother believes. He kind of blew up. But, I mean, hey, I'm pushing for Mace Windu to be alive, so I'm not one to talk. Kit Fisto, definitely dead. Got killed by Sidious, spoiler alert. but he's the Nautilin Jedi, the guy with the green skin and the tentacles on his head. He's absolutely phenomenal. And I think that he's really only used prominently twice in the Clone Wars, one being the Lair of General Grievous and two being in the Water War episode because Nautilins are an aquatic species. But I think he's the Smiling Jedi. A lot of these characters I just think are cool and I want to see more of. There's not really any more significance behind it other than that. But I really, I think that to have just a little extra storyline with him would be really, really cool. Same thing with Plo. And Oprah Rancistas is one Jedi who we don't really get to know much about at all. He appears a little bit, I don't know how to pronounce his species name. It's like Thespian or something like that. He's a guy that has like the little snake tail and the really big white beard. He sits on the Jedi Council. I'm 90% sure that he was a Padawan directly to Grandmaster Yoda for a time. And we don't get to see him in action at all. We just see him kind of exist. But I think that that would be super, super cool to be able to see him and how he operated as a Jedi, as a potential general within the Clone Wars. And I think that the fact that we didn't get to see him do many things in the Clone Wars was a little bit disappointing. And I think that that would be a really cool thing. Maybe he was a survivor for Order 66. We don't really see anything else about him past those few scenes in the movies in the council chambers and then in the council chambers in Clone Wars. So I think getting to explore that character more would be super, super fascinating. Moving on, General Grievous is someone who I talked about maybe getting his own show in the past. I think that an origins series for General Grievous would be super, super cool, getting to see how he went from a Kaleesh general on to becoming, or a Kaleesh warrior on to becoming the droid cyborg general that we see him as in the shows and movies, and getting to see him training under Dooku and his early days of killing Jedi. And I think a little extra justice for how cool of a character he is and how formidable of an ally or formidable of an opponent he is for Jedi, not of necessarily like Obi-Wan Kenobi's caliber, but of like lower ranking Jedi who were slain by him in battle. I think that that would be able to put into perspective how terrifying of a foe he actually was. Darth Plagueis, we only have heard him mentioned. Now there's a Legends book that I talked about in my favorite Star Wars books. I would highly recommend. I think that that might be one of, if not my absolute favorite Star Wars books that I've read. And I would highly recommend that. But we don't have anything canon about him. And I think that having some sort of prequel to the prequels about Darth Plagueis and him training Palpatine in the early days of their master and apprenticeship would be amazing, with Tom Hiddleston as young Palpatine. I said it before, and I really want it to happen. But I think that that would be really, really cool. And I think that we deserve to know a little bit more about Plagueis in canon, because we know literally nothing other than the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise as told by Sheev Palpatine. Next thing I want to see, and this will come as a complete shock to all of you, but Mace Windu. Bring him back for his own show, please. I'm still reading Shatterpoint right now, so I'm not done, and I can't really speak on that. But something like this, where we get to be up close and personal with Mace Windu, get to see how his mind works, get to see how he operates, because, again, criminally underused within the Clone Wars. Maybe he's still alive. Maybe not. Maybe we just get a precursor to his early days, maybe with Mahershala Ali or John David Washington playing him. But please give me more Mace Windu content. Or Sam Jackson comes back. I don't know. Depends on when it's set. But I just want to see that. That's what I want to see. That's what the people want to see. Give us what we want. Thank you. I don't know who I'm talking to. But for those of you who listen to this podcast, you know that I love Mace Windu. And I just want to see more of him. So, sue me. Anyways. Embo. He is a bounty hunter who has like the metal hat that we see in Clone Wars. Super cool character. I would love a bounty hunter centered show with like, which I think the Book of Boba Fett might be, and I think that would be amazing if we got to see Embo in live action in that. But just get to see, because he's just a kind of a stoic background character up to this point, and I really want to get to see more of him and just see him in action more. I think that he is one of the most entertaining and underrated characters, or not underrated, because I think it's a pretty general consensus that people like him, but y'all know what I mean. He's underused. And I think that to get to see more of him would serve the fans well. In that same vein, Cad Bane, I think that getting the more of him that we see, the better. I think that he's an amazing character. I think that he's one of the best characters that came out of the Clone Wars. Once again, I think that there's a very good chance that he shows back up in Book of Boba Fett. And I really just want to see more of him because I think that he's such a cool character. And I don't see why not Dave Filoni make it happen. And I think that both of these would fit very well into a bounty hunter centered show. Just kind of following that, kind of like the similar style to The Mandalorian, but without the central focus being Mando kind of branching out to other bounty hunters within the guild and stuff like that. Quinlan Boss, another Jedi. He's the Jedi with dreadlocks. He is only in one episode of the Clone Wars, at least where he's featured like prominently, which is The Hunt for Zero. But he is featured very heavily in Dark Disciple, which is the canon novel that was based off of unfinished episodes of the Clone Wars where he and Asajj Ventress team up to try to assassinate Count Dooku. And this was where like it was kind of tied with Plagueis for me. Like it was either Dark Disciple or Plagueis to be my favorite Star Wars novel. They're both absolutely incredible, would highly recommend both. But I think that there's so much to explore about him. And I think it's rumored that Quinlan Boss survived Order 66. So I think that a post-Order 66 series starring him where he's trying to like find and rescue other Jedi would be chef's kiss amazing. And I think that is really something that the fans would love. And I think that maybe getting Jason Momoa to play him would be awesome. Like absolutely perfect. I don't think you understand how happy that would make me. But I digress. Quinlan Boss is another one that I would really like to see. Sheev Palpatine, I've already kind of talked with him about Plagueis. Have Tom Hiddleston play him, do a precursor movie. Do it, Lucasfilm. I know you're listening. You're probably not, actually. Why would you listen to this? There are like 5 people that listen to this. But hey, for those of you who do listen, I really appreciate y'all. Y'all are the best. Jango Fett, a precursor to how he got like kind of hired by Count Dooku to be the clone template. Kind of his days as a Mandalorian, being part of the true Mandalorians in opposition with Death Watch. I think that would be amazing. Kind of a movie following the Mandalorians now that we know a little bit more about them through The Mandalorian, and getting to see kind of the early days, like before the Clone Wars, during that schism between maybe we see a young Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon in the background kind of helping to save Duchess Satine, which would be after Jango's time, but still kind of that sort of style of movie where you get to see the opposing sides of the Mandalorians and get to see them in their prime and get to see them when they were at the height of their power, either as an Old Republic movie or as kind of true Mandalorian versus Death Watch era of Mandalorian. And if you wanted to learn more about Mandalorians, go back to my previous episode. I have a whole episode going into a brief introspective into the Mandalorians, and I think that you would really enjoy that if that's something that interests you. Saifoodius, we don't get too much about him. We get a little bit about him in the Clone Wars, but not too much. I think that he's another super interesting character. Getting to see him training with Count Dooku in the early days, getting to see him kind of how he operated, because he was a very unorthodox Jedi. So getting to see kind of why he wasn't taken seriously by the Council, and getting to see kind of how he foresaw the Clone Wars and all that stuff, and how he was actually right in what he did, and that the Jedi Council was too arrogant, too blind to accept what he was saying. I think that would be a really cool maybe miniseries, or not even miniseries, maybe like a 4 to 6 episode Disney Plus series about that. I think that would be super cool. Hondo Anaka, one of my favorite Clone Wars characters. He's the weekly pirate who captures Dooku, Anakin, and Obi-Wan who's kind of more of a comedic relief character, but I would love to see more of him. I think that there's a good chance that he shows up in Book of Boba Fett because he has that existing connection between Boba, Jango. But we see that in the Clone Wars in Boba's first arc that Hondo knew his father, and so they have that existing bond. I think that would be priceless if we got to see him. And just know that he's survived even past Rebels where we last saw him. So, fingers crossed, I hope that happens. And lastly, for the kind of prequel era, I want to see something involving the Clone Commandos. This is coming from me having played like a little bit of the Republic Commando game and then getting kind of sucked in by the continuous gameplay and then getting scared about getting sucked in again, so quitting. But I think that it would be super, super cool to have kind of the issue. The only issue is that Bad Batch is pretty similar, but having a less having them be less of like a rogue squadron of like, I don't know, but having them, just seeing them operate, less seeing, because we haven't really gotten to see the Bad Batch operate as a team as they were intended. We have seen them on the run so far without giving too much away for the series. For those of you who haven't watched it, we've seen them more on the run rather than operating as soldiers. And I want to see these elite soldiers within the Republic kind of going in covert operations without Jedi and being successful in their own right just as clones. I think that would have been super cool to see in the Clone Wars, and maybe we could circle back and have maybe a short series about them, like maybe Delta Squad moving forward, because we see them featured in Clone Wars in Savage Opress's initial arc, and they're never seen again. So I'm really hopeful that we could maybe get something like that in the future. I doubt it, at least not from that, but I think that would be a super, super cool thing. Okay, so that's the bulk of my list. I have a couple other things. Kira from Solo, I think that we should have a Solo sequel, not following Han Solo necessarily, but following Kira and her relationship with Darth Maul and how that would play out in the future. I think that would be super fascinating. I want to see more of Bosk, same vein as Cad Bane and Embo, but having a show focusing on bounty hunters. I'm hopeful that he will show up in Book of Boba Fett, but never know. I want to see more of Admiral Thrawn. I think that he was an amazing part of Rebels, and I think that we'll definitely see more of him. It sounds like starting in the Ahsoka show that's coming out. I don't remember when, but eventually I think that that's something that we're going to see. I want to learn a little bit more about Maf Gideon and his Imperial Remnant, but I'm sure that we'll get a few answers about that in The Mandalorian Season 3. Grogu. I want to see his early life. Maybe get a little backstory about his life with the Jedi. Get to see a little bit of insight in that. Maybe we'll see that in Bad Batch, but maybe we'll get a little bit of that in Mando Season 3. Not entirely sure, but that's something that I want to see. Moving into the sequel era. I'm not super interested in most of this. I think that they should just kind of leave this era alone, move away from it for a long time, and either go back in time or really far forward in time, like another 30-year time jump just to get away from it, because I think there's so much negativity surrounding the sequel era. But that being said, I think that a prequel series about Kylo Ren would be super, super cool. Getting to see how he fell to the dark side, getting to see kind of his missteps while being trained by Luke. I think that would be a fascinating thing. And then Finn is a criminally underutilized character. I was super excited to get to learn more about him, and then we just didn't. So I don't know how that would happen. I really don't want to revisit the sequels, like I said, but if we were going to, I would want to learn more about either Kylo Ren or Finn. That's it. Cut and dry. Leave the rest of it out. The rest of it's trash fire, and I will talk about that eventually, but there's very little good things that I could say about the sequel trilogy. The best thing would be Kylo Ren, and the second best thing would be Finn, and both were kind of discarded for the sake of other characters. But anyways, in general, this isn't necessarily a character, but I want to see, and I've said this in my What I Want to See in Star Wars Moving Forward episode, but the Old Republic, or at least pre-prequel eras, either Old Republic, or like maybe the Darth Bane lineage, getting to see the Rule of Two kind of play out over time, or like the First Jedi Order, like go way back 25,000 years to the very beginning. I think that any of those would be absolutely incredible. Old Republic, preferably, but I would be super down for any of those things. And then now I have one character that I don't want to learn any more about, like at all. Unless we're going back in time to see his early days as a Jedi, but I really don't want to know because I think that the mystery surrounding this character is what makes him really special. And that's Yoda. I don't want to know what his species is called. I don't want to know where he came from. And I don't really want to know any more about him than we already do. Not going to lie. I think that part of the charm of his character is the fact that we don't know much about him. I think that that's what made him super special initially, is that he was so mysterious. And I think that that's something that we should preserve. Anyways, that's all I have to say. That's all for this segment of ARC Trooper Training Visions. If y'all think I missed anybody, y'all want me to add anybody to this list, feel free to let me know. This is just a personal list of mine, obviously, and this was a lot of rambling, so I hope that y'all don't mind that. But anyways, this would not be a proper episode if I didn't leave y'all with a little bit more. So this is actually fairly well known, but for those of you who are new to Star Wars, this might be new news to y'all. But for those of you who do know, just bear with me. I know that this might be a more common knowledge than most of my mores, but Mace Windu, as y'all should know by now, has a purple lightsaber. And the reason for this was previously, before Mace Windu ever ignited his lightsaber, the only known lightsaber colors were green and blue for Jedi and then red for Sith. But the reason that Mace Windu had a purple lightsaber and the reason that this color was eventually added, or was officially added to the canon, was because Samuel Jackson wanted to be able to find himself in a large battlefield. Because the first time we see him in action is in the Geonosian Arena, which has a bunch of different lightsabers, and so he wanted to be able to find exactly where he was in the large-scale battle very easily. So that's just a cool thing, and I love it so much. That's the reason why his character is still my favorite to this day. That's why he was initially my favorite whenever I was a kid, was because my favorite color was purple, still is. And yeah, just love it so much. Anyways, that's all that I have for today. Make sure you stay tuned this Friday for my weekly Bad Batch review and breakdown. We only have 4 more episodes. I'm super, super excited to see what else is to come in this series. If you haven't started watching already, I would highly recommend that. That's about all I have. Feel free to follow us on Instagram if you haven't already. Subscribe to us on YouTube. On Instagram, we are at Twin Sun Talks. YouTube, we are Twin Sun Talks Podcast. And yeah, hope you all enjoyed this. I know it was a lot of just me talking, but I hope that wasn't too annoying. That's all. You've taken your first steps into a larger world. May the Force be with you, and I will see y'all in the next episode. Bye, friends.